Sonic the Hedgehog. He's a gaming icon, a famed speedster. He's also a resident cool guy, especially compared to that lame-o Mario. He's also a devout Christian. What? Yeah, no, it's more likely than you would think. Especially if you're browsing DeviantArt, where you can find a plethora of Christian Sonic art. Today on this wonderful episode of Tyler Talks, we're going to be taking a dive into the strange world of Christian Sonic art, and hopefully answering the question, why is there so much of it? Christian Sonic art is pretty self-explanatory. It's art that depicts Sonic the Hedgehog and his friends, praising the Lord, praying, and all that. Also, there's usually Bible verses behind them. A lot of the works are very amateurish in nature. I mean, you can tell that they're drawn by young children or preteens. And due to that, they're usually seen as weird, strange, or cringe. But we're not here to point and laugh at these artwork. We're here more or less to actually take a magnifying glass to this phenomenon to truly understand why there's so much of it. Well, to start, a lot of the known pieces of Christian Sonic art come to us in the early 2000s, and on DeviantArt, they come to us from the Mobian Ministry, a DeviantArt group that was founded in 2006 that no longer exists. So a lot of what I found relating to the Mobian Ministry, I had to scrounge around from posts tagged with Mobian Ministry. But with what I have, it at least gives me an idea of what the Mobian Ministry was like. It seems to be a bunch of artwork made by people on the younger side that featured Sonic and his friends with Christian themes or Bible verses. Usually both. And on DeviantArt pages, Christian Sonic art would just kind of chill there for a while. That would be until 2012, when the blog Sonic Retro would post a bunch of Christian Sonic images to their blog with no context, just for their audience to gawk at. This would be followed next year in 2013 with a Redditor posting another collection to cringe pics for people to cringe at and make fun of. This would begin the era that coincides with the internet's edgy phase. People would just shit on the bizarre nature, and also, we'll be honest, it is cringy, but people would just shit on it since, this is when the internet started getting edgy. But also, this is also kind of during peak Reddit atheism, so maybe that had something to do with it too. Ooh. But during this period, we got a lot of ironic Christian Sonic art, and I mean, you can tell it's ironic. Here's some behind me. That's it. We're not talking about it anymore because that's not in the scope of this video. Nor will be, because I don't care. Wow, Sonic and Shrek. Oh, that's so funny. However, by 2014, both Crack.com and College Humor also made articles featuring this, which probably helped fuel the fire of, this is cringe, laugh. But the Crack.com article still exists, while the College Humor article doesn't anymore. They're both basically, ZOMG, how strange, the fuck? But past the 2010s, there isn't really anything that's Christian Sonic related, both actual Christian Sonic art and ironic Christian Sonic art. I mean, of course, there's some outliers, but primarily around, I want to say, 2015, it seems the trend died. So, yeah, Christian Sonic art seems to be something that people made in earnest in the 2000s and, I want to say, maybe early 2010s, before the wider internet discovered it, shitted on it, and then everyone forgot about it. But why was there so much Christian Sonic art in the first place? If you go to DeviantArt, you can see over 2,000 Christian Sonic artworks. Mario, Kirby, Naruto, and  each of these fandoms, they only have artwork that's in the hundreds. What caused Sonic to have just this massive pious following? Well, it seems we might have an answer if we look at corporate evangelical Christianity. Nowadays is a declining institution in the United States. However, in the 1990s and 2000s, it stood atop a tower of wealth, power, and influence built up by the moral majority in the 1980s, especially during the Reagan administration. But with all of that power, evangelical Christianity lacked one single thing: being cool. Pop culture was just something that moved far too fast for the Christian media bubble to really keep up with. And as such, most things Christian parents got for their children to have, safe alternatives against the devilish media that people would consume. These alternatives usually were knockoffs, behind the times, not nearly as good, and definitely lame. Just look at any extreme Bible, gamer Bible, Christian versions of Doom, Captain Bible. These are all the things that children in the 90s and early 2000s were left with, while the other kids at school had stuff like the first ever Call of Duties, Mortal Kombat, Pokemon, hell, fucking Captain Underpants and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Lacking anything really cool by kid standards, no shit. Children that were raised under more strict evangelical households were scrambling for anything to make them seem cool. And parents monitoring them wanted to make sure that it was something safe for their God-fearing children to enjoy. In comes Sonic. He's a bad boy. He's got an attitude. He's cool. And luckily, he's just edgy enough to where parents don't bat too much of an eye to him. After all, there's not really any violence. All you really do is just rescue animals from robots, so what's the harm? Little Ezekiel can play his damn Sonic on his Sega Nintendo all he pleases. But why not Mario? By the 1990s, he was basically Mr. Video Games at this point. Can you describe Mario's personality to me? Yeah, that's the problem. Mario more or less was a blank slate. He didn't really have a personality until, I want to say, the 2000s, 2010s with 3D Mario. So even then, let's be honest, compared to Sonic, it's basically non-existent. So that's why Sonic ended up being the big Christian boy. He was cool, and he had a personality. So, with the rise of the internet, people who were drawing their favorite character also included their faith, and they were all able to find each other and post it together in groups, allowing a following of Christian Sonic stuff to emerge. This also can help explain why the Christian Sonic movement died by the 2010s. By then, the Christian media bubble more or less collapsed and died out, and the internet made it increasingly difficult for parents to decide what was safe for their children. So more people would have been less stuck with lame Christian media, and were now able to be exposed to the cooler media that kids in less religious households were able to experience. Not that I'm saying that that's 100%. After all, someone who was growing up in the 2010s, my parents were vaguely religious. We went to an Eastern Orthodox church sometimes. So in this argument, I would have definitely fallen under the cool kids who let all the cool media. But definitely there were people that in my elementary, middle school, even up to like my freshman year of high school, that were pretty much raised as sheltered Christian youth group kids. The kids who kind of were dependent on people like Sonic to be cool. But that's besides the point. That's a bit of a tangent. But, the internet becoming much more popular in the 2010s probably had something to do with the collapse of the religious fandom community. But also, you could argue that, the United States was becoming a less religious nation throughout the 2010s into, nowadays. And also, cringe culture dominating the web during that period also probably killed it off, too. I mean, definitely a lot of stuff got killed off by cringe culture. But to conclude, it seems like Christian Sonic art was a movement that emerged just at the right time and at the right place. It existed when evangelical Christianity was still a dominant force in the United States, and also just when the internet was becoming much more accessible to the public. It died when America became less religious, and also when the internet made it more difficult for parents to monitor what media children consumed. It died because children had more options, less controlled by their parents. But for everything that we've talked about, the Christian Sonic community was definitely one of the most harmless things to exist on the internet, perhaps showing us a time when the internet was less of a mean and cruel place compared to today. With that out of the way, I hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you all next time.